Thank you. Okay, let's go on to the next question. When you stop exercising and lifting weights, does your muscle turn into fat? Does collagen protein help with muscle building, or is it only for joint health?
Yeah, this is a good question. So, and I've heard this, throughout the years. In fact, when I was a kid, I used to think this, or I used to hear people talk about it. That if you stop working out, so you build up muscle because you're lifting weights, you stop lifting weights, and now your muscle will actually turn into fat. And that's actually not true. So what happens is, in order to build muscle, we need resistance, and so we need tension. Time under tension is the key principle. And if we're not doing that, we are going to atrophy. Our muscles are going to atrophy to a certain point. Obviously, all of us are doing kind of daily activities and things like that. We're not just sitting on a couch all day long, or our muscles could almost completely atrophy. In fact, when astronauts go into outer space and they don't have gravity, they don't have the same tension. So if they're out there for a long time, when they come back, they have to learn how to walk again. They get so much muscle atrophy. Nowadays, they've got a little bit more technology to where they're able to reduce that. But we need time under tension in order to stress our muscles so that they will grow and become more resilient to stress. If we stop exercising, our muscles will start to atrophy and shrink. That means obviously they reduce their size, their load capacity, their energy production. When that happens, our overall metabolism goes down because muscle is very active tissue. It also is a great storage carrier for glucose, glycogen. In fact, if you go on a fast or a low carb diet, like a ketogenic diet, and you lose weight in the beginning, a lot of that is sugar that's coming out of the muscles, becoming active glycogen that we're using for energy. And then that brings water, right? So glucose, when we have glucose going into our muscles and into our liver and being stored as glycogen, it also brings water with it, which gives it more size, more hypertrophy to the muscle. So when we start losing that, because our glycogen stores go down when we're not exercising, we don't need as much extra reserve fuel in there. We lose overall muscle size and volume. And then our metabolism also goes down, and our storage capacity for excess glucose in our bloodstream. So if we eat a donut or something like that, our blood glucose goes way up, and then we store that glucose into, obviously we use some of it for energy, and then we store it for a future energy usage in our liver and our muscles. And then once they're all full of glycogen, then we turn the glucose into fat and store it as fat. So as we lose the storage capacity, we have higher and higher amounts of blood sugar, and we're going to start to store that as fat. And so it's not that the muscle turns into fat. It's just that as we lose muscle, our metabolism shifts and changes. We get less able to buffer glucose. We get higher and higher amounts of insulin. Insulin tells the body to store fat. It's a fat storage hormone. So as insulin goes up and we lose insulin sensitivity, we start storing more fat, and our body fat goes up. And this is really what happens and why most people are gaining weight as they get older. A lot of people think, well, you just gain weight as you get older. Well, that's not necessarily true. Okay. I'm older than I was when I was 20, but I'm just as strong, just as fit, same body fat percentage, because I take good care of myself. But most people, as they're getting older, are not taking good care of themselves. They're not stressing their muscle tissue, working on actively building muscle, and they start to obviously lose muscle and then also gain fat. So that's really the answer to that question. And Dr. Vaughn, what was the follow-up question there?
Follow-up question was, does collagen protein help with muscle building, or is it only for joint health?
Yeah, this is a great question. Collagen protein, bone broth protein, been very, very popular in our society, and for good reason, because collagen is the number one structural protein in our body. It makes up our skin, our hair, our fascia, ligaments, tendons, gut lining is collagen. And so it's the number one protein in our body. And our ancestors would have gotten collagen by eating animals from nose to tail, meaning that they're going to eat, for example, like a chicken wing, they're going to eat the synovial joint at the top. They're going to eat the ligaments. They're going to eat the tendons. They're going to eat as much of they're not as desirable as the muscle meat. The muscle meat, is what makes up like the steak. If you get like a bone-in steak, most people are eating around the bone, but they're not eating kind of the tendinous part that's actually attached to the bone. our ancestors would have tried to eat as much of this stuff as possible, and they would have boiled up the bones and made a broth or a soup out of it. But in our society, because food's so prevalent and easy, we want the easy sources. So we want really well cooked, muscle meat, basically. And and there's a difference between collagen protein and muscle meat protein when it comes to amino acid breakdowns. And so when we look at collagen protein, it's very high in things like glycine, proline, hydroxyproline. These kind of amino acids are really, really good for joint health, very good for, helping support our ligaments, our tendons, our liver detoxification systems, our gut lining. So super important for that. But collagen protein is very low in branched chain amino acids. That's leucine, isoleucine, and valine. And these branched chain amino acids are what signal anabolic activity or growth activity in our body, particularly muscle growth activity. And so the muscle meats, or things like whey protein, for example, are much higher in these branched chain amino acids, and they are going to have the impact on muscle growth. So collagen protein or collagen peptides or bone broth protein or drinking bone broth can be very good for your body, very good for your immune system, your skin, your hair, your connective tissue, maybe reducing injuries or helping speed up injury recovery, but not good for actually building muscle tissue. So you wouldn't want to use that in a sense as like a muscle building protein. When we look at those key branched chain amino acids, we find that, for example, in whey protein, we have over 10 times more leucine and isoleucine, which leucine is the primary branched chain amino acid that's associated with muscle growth. It's the number one trigger for muscle growth in our system. And so whey protein has more than 10 times that in a similar serving as your collagen peptides or your bone broth protein, and more than 4 times the amount of valine. So that's the other key branched chain amino acid. Also, with collagen protein, it doesn't have tryptophan or cysteine, which are key amino acids that are necessary for muscle growth, as well as like tryptophan helps with serotonin production. Cysteine is critical for glutathione production. So we need a combination of both, basically. We need muscle building, complete proteins, or I recommend muscle meats, right? For those, as well as things like whey protein, if you're able to handle dairy, can be really great for muscle building. There's also complete proteins that are plant-based, whether it's pea protein, hemp protein. A lot of times you can find protein powders that are done with some of these other types of proteins, or you combine legumes with rice if you're a vegetarian or vegan. That can create a complete protein. But no better muscle building protein source than muscle meat itself, like a steak, or something like whey protein or dairy protein in general, as long as you tolerate dairy well. So that's really what you want to look for there.